The note had no signature, just her name in Korean characters, precise, unhurried, and one line beneath it in English. Some doors in Seoul open the wrong way. Be careful which ones you walk through. Elizabeth Okonkwo read it once. Crouching on the floor of her Mapo-gu studio in the 6 a.m. gray light, the note between two fingers, the cold of an old building settling around her shoulders. She stood, photographed it, set it on the counter, made coffee, drank half of it at the window watching Mapo-gu wake below, the hot dog cart, the school children, the ordinary machinery of a neighborhood that did not know it had just made a mistake. Then she called Seo-jin. First ring. Talk, he said. Not hello, just talk. Something was slid under my door. I photographed it. I haven't touched it since. A pause. Before you say anything, I am not leaving Seoul. 4 seconds of silence. When he spoke, his voice was level in the specific way that meant the opposite of calm. Do not touch anything else. I'm coming. She set the phone down, looked at the note on her counter, looked at the unfinished canvas leaning against the far wall. Meridian, her 9th painting, the one she had started on the plane from Abuja, the one that still didn't know what it was going to become. Midnight blue at the base, something warm rising through the center, the top of the canvas still blank and waiting. She picked up her coffee. She waited. He arrived in 18 minutes. Park Dojin came in first, not dramatically, just efficiently, the way a man who has been managing threats for a decade moves through a space he is instantly cataloging. Seo-jin came in behind him and crossed directly to the counter and looked at the note without touching it. How long ago? He said. It was there when I woke at 5. Could have been there for hours. Dojin was already at the window, looking down at the street below with the specific attention of a man counting exits and identifying problems. You know who sent it, Elizabeth said. Seo-jin looked at her. Yes. The Shin Network. He didn't confirm with words. He didn't need to. The confirmation was in the way his jaw set, and the way Dojun turned from the window, and the way the room rearranged its own atmosphere. Sit, Elizabeth said. Both of you. I made coffee. Dojun looked at Seo-jin. Seo-jin looked at Elizabeth. She was already reaching for 2 cups. Neither of them sat immediately. They were men accustomed to standing during problems. But she set the cups on the table with the calm authority of a woman in her own space, and eventually they sat. Tell me everything, she said. Not the version designed to manage my reaction. Everything. Seo-jin told her. The Shin Network, their structure, their reach, the Yongsan situation that had been suppressed but not eliminated. He told her the note was not a direct threat. It was a demonstration, proof of access, proof of knowledge. A message delivered through her body and her address to land on his desk without going anywhere near his desk. She was the envelope. The message was for him. So, I'm leverage, she said. They want me to believe you're leverage, he said. That only works if I respond as though you are. Or if you run. I'm not running. I know. Something shifted in his face, relief crossing through control like weather. But I need you to understand what staying means. The Shin Network is not... They are not theatrical. They don't send notes for drama. They send notes to measure response time. They are watching what I do in the next 48 hours. Then what are you going to do? He looked at her steadily. What I always do, but I want you somewhere safer while I do it. Define safer. Not this building, not alone. Elizabeth looked at him. Are you asking me to move in with you? The silence that followed had several layers in it. Dojun developed a sudden intense interest in his coffee. I am asking you, Seo-jin said carefully, to stay somewhere with proper security while the situation is resolved. That could mean... Seo-jin. Yes. Is that what you're asking, or is that the diplomatic version of what you're asking? A pause. Something moved in his expression that was rare, and therefore significant. The specific vulnerability of a man saying a true thing he had not planned to say yet. Both, he said, diplomatically and otherwise. Both. She looked at him for a long moment. She looked at Meridian on the wall, the unfinished canvas, the question still suspended in paint. Then she said, "I'll stay at Halmioni's, the building above the stall, if she'll have me." Dojun looked up from his coffee. "Halmioni's building has better security than most government facilities," he said matter-of-factly. "Boss had it installed 2 years ago." Elizabeth looked at Seo-jin. "You put surveillance on your grandmother's pojangmacha." "I put protection on my grandmother," he said without apology. She almost smiled. "Almost. Fine. Halmioni's, but I'm finishing Meridian first." It was at this exact moment that Elizabeth's phone buzzed on the table. She looked at the screen. A message from Adana in Lagos. No text, just a file attachment and 4 words beneath it. "Open this." Right now, she opened it. A photograph. Ji-yeon, elegant, gray coat, oversized sunglasses, entering a private clinic in Apgujeong. The timestamp in the corner, 3 days after Seo-jin's divorce papers were filed. Below that, a second image, a clinic receipt, a doctor's name, a specialty that had nothing to do with obstetrics and everything to do with verifying that no pregnancy existed to begin with. A third image, a legal filing document. Ji-yeon's lawyers citing a pregnancy, requesting the divorce proceedings be paused. Elizabeth read all 3 images carefully. Then she set her phone face up on the table so Seo-jin could see. He read. The stillness that moved over him was not the stillness of shock. It was the stillness of a man confirming something he had already suspected and was now watching become evidence. "She filed this morning," he said. "I know." "How does Adana? Adana has connections in every city that has a Korean expatriate community, a Nigerian diaspora, and a private medical sector that employs underpaid administrative staff who remember faces." Elizabeth looked at him. "She has been running in your direction since I told her about the note. She got here first." Dojin set his cup down with slightly too much deliberateness. "I want to hire her," he said. "She's not available," Elizabeth said. "She has her own operation." Seo-jin looked at her, at the phone, at the 3 images that collectively constituted the detonation of Ji-yeon's claim before it had been running 24 hours. "What do you want to do with this?" he said. "Nothing yet." She folded her hands. "Ji-yeon needs an audience for this kind of move. She will find a public moment. When she does, I'll find mine." Dojun looked at Seo-jin. Seo-jin looked at Elizabeth. Outside, the Shin network was watching his response time. Upstairs in Apgujeong, Ji-yeon's lawyers were filing documents. In Lagos, Adana was already 3 steps ahead of everyone. And in a small Mapo-gu studio, the woman at the center of all of it was sitting with perfect composure, asking for a second cup of coffee. "You are the most dangerous person in this room," Dojin said quietly. He sounded genuinely respectful. Elizabeth poured herself more coffee. "I know," she said. "If you are watching this, and you have ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had the upper hand, comment Adana below right now, because what comes next is going to make you stand up. Subscribe, like, stay locked in." The Shin Network moved on a Wednesday, not with another note, with something Seo-jin had not anticipated, which was, itself the point. They did not go after his business holdings again. They did not go after Elizabeth directly. They went after Halmioni. Not physically, they were not that crude, and they understood that touching Halmioni would remove every restraint Seo-jin had ever imposed on himself. Instead, they sent a city official to her pojangmacha on a Wednesday morning with a citation, noise ordinance violation, health code irregularities, a list of bureaucratic grievances that had been manufactured with the precision of people who understood how power moved through paperwork. The citation carried a 14-day closure order. Halmioni received the official with the expression of a woman who had survived things that would have ended lesser people and was not particularly impressed by a man with a clipboard. She read the citation, looked at the official, said something in Korean that made him step backward involuntarily. Then she called Seo-jin. He arrived in 12 minutes. He read, "The citation in the cab." By the time he reached the stall, he had already made 2 phone calls. By the time the city official had finished explaining the complaints, Seo Jin's lawyers were already pulling every permit, every inspection record, every piece of documentation that the stall had accumulated across 31 years of operation. The closure order was challenged within the hour. But that was not what disturbed him. What disturbed him was that the Shin network had known about Halmioni's stall, had known it mattered, had known that striking there would destabilize him in a way that striking his business holdings wouldn't, because his business holdings were empire, and his empire was armor, and Halmioni's pojangmacha was the only thing in his life that had never been either of those things. It had always been the one unarmored place, which meant they had been watching longer and more carefully than he had estimated. He called Dojin from the stall while Halmioni served the morning customers with deliberate, unhurried normalcy, her version of defiance, which was the most effective version. "They know about the stall," he said quietly. "I know," Dojin said. "There's something else. They know about the painting." Seo Jin went very still. "What painting?" "Meridian. They know Elizabeth is working on something significant. There's a buyer, not a real buyer, a proxy, who approached the Hongdae Gallery this morning with a purchase offer. Substantial. Cash. The gallery called Elizabeth directly." Seo Jin said nothing for 4 seconds. "They're not trying to buy it," Dojin said. "They're trying to tell you they can reach inside everything you care about. The stall, the painting, the woman. Where is Elizabeth now?" "Studio. She knows about the gallery call. She declined the offer immediately and called me. She's aware." A pause. "She said, and I am quoting directly, 'Tell him I'm still not leaving Seoul and I've hidden the painting somewhere. They won't find it.'" Despite everything, Seo Jin felt something in his chest that was not appropriate to the situation. Where did she hide it? Halmeoni's storage room, behind the teokbokki powder. He looked at his grandmother, who was ladling broth into a bowl with complete serenity. "Of course she did," he said. He ended the call. He sat at the counter. Halmeoni set a bowl in front of him without being asked. "They went after your stall," he said to her in Korean. "I know," she said, not looking up. "I'm sorry." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Your father made the mistake of thinking the people who loved him were separate from his problems. He tried to protect us by keeping us away. That is how we became the thing they used against him." She looked at him. "The Nigerian girl put my painting in my storage room this morning, before you even knew about the gallery call. She understands something your father never did. The people who love you are not your vulnerability. They are your strength. Stop managing us and start trusting us." Seo Jin sat with that for a long time. That afternoon, he called a meeting. Not with his lawyers, not with Dojun, but with the 3 people at the top of the Shin Network's accessible chain. He met them in a restaurant in Yongsan that he owned under a holding company they did not know was his. He was there first. He let them order. He waited until the food arrived. Then he placed 3 folders on the table, one for each of them, and he said very quietly, without raising his voice or changing his expression, "Everything in those folders has been filed with people I trust in locations I won't name. If anything happens to my grandmother's business, to Elizabeth Okonkwo, to her paintings, to anyone connected to either of them, those folders become public in ways that end careers and begin prison sentences." He straightened his jacket. "This conversation is over. Your move against me is over. And I would like you to finish your lunch because wasted food is disrespectful, and I am trying, as a personal project, to be a less frightening person. So please eat." They ate. They left. They did not contact him again. Do-jun, who had been at a corner table throughout, walked out beside him and said, "The personal project line." "Too much?" Seo-jin said. "No," Do-jun said. "It was terrifying. In a new way." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Seo-jin was alone in his office when the confirmation came through his lawyer. The email arrived at 9:47 in the morning, 3 short paragraphs, legal language, the clean administrative conclusion of 7 years. He read it once. set his phone face down on the desk, looked at Seoul through the floor-to-ceiling window, the city brilliant and indifferent as it always was. He sat with it. He gave it the respect of actual feeling rather than managed response. 7 years. The strategic alliance, the Gangnam apartment, the right events, and the right photographs, and two people living side by side in the specific loneliness of a marriage that had always been architecture rather than home. He did not feel grief exactly. He felt the particular weight of time, years that could not be recovered and would not be given back, years in which he had been present in every room and genuinely absent from all of them. He thought about Ji-yeon, about the pregnancy claim that had collapsed like a building with no foundation, about the moment Do-jun had told him she'd withdrawn it, not because she'd been forced to according to her lawyer, but because she'd chosen to. Reconsidered circumstances. He had read that phrase 4 times trying to understand it. He thought he did, finally. She had chosen, at the last moment, to be the version of herself she could live with. He respected that. It did not erase anything, but he respected it. He picked up his phone. He called Elizabeth. She picked up on the second ring. He could hear the studio in the background, the particular quiet of a space where someone is working. "It's done," he said. She set something down. A brush, he thought, from the sound. "How are you?" He looked at Seoul. "Like a room I kept the light on and out of habit finally went dark." He paused. "It should have gone dark years ago, and somehow the apartment feels larger." "That's not grief," she said. "No, it isn't." "Good." A pause. "Seo-jin, I need to tell you something." Something in her voice made him sit forward. "Tell me." "The gallery in Hongdae called this morning, not the Shin Network proxy. Bai Jung-soo, the owner. He has an offer for Meridian, a real one this time, from a collector in Tokyo." She paused. "It's significant. Enough that I can fund my next 3 exhibitions independently. Enough that I don't need anyone's support to do what I do next." He was quiet. "I'm not telling you this to create distance," she said. "I'm telling you because I need you. To know that I am here because I choose to be. Not because I need to be. There is a difference, and it matters to me that you understand it." He understood it. He felt it land in exactly the place she intended it to land. Not as a warning or a withdrawal, but as the most honest declaration she knew how to make. "I am not here because I am anchored. I am here because I keep choosing the anchor." "Keep the painting," he said. "I'm selling it," she said. "I paint to be seen, not to be stored. Meridian needs to be in the world." A pause. "But I painted something else last night, something I haven't named yet. It's for you. It's not for sale." He was quiet for a long moment. "What does it look like?" "Come tonight," she said. "I'll show you." What he did not know, what she had not told him, and would not tell him until he was standing in front of it, was that the new painting was not dark, not midnight blue, not the language of grief and displacement that had characterized everything she had made since the night the champagne glass shattered. This one was entirely warm, terracotta and deep gold and the specific amber of a pojangmacha tent at 11 at night, the colors layered and honest and unafraid, a form in the center that was unmistakably 2 people, not romantic, not sentimental, just true, sitting side by side with steam rising between them and the whole world going on outside and caring about none of it. She had been painting it since 3 in the morning. She had not stopped until it was done. She called it home. "You're not ready for what happens at this dinner. Comment right now. Do you think Elizabeth should have sold Meridian or kept it? This is the debate I want in the comments. Subscribe because the next scene is the one everyone is going to be talking about." Ji-yeon chose a Thursday evening. A private art world dinner in Gangnam, the kind of room where the power wore quiet and the judgments lasted. Elizabeth had been invited by Bai Jung-soo to discuss the Tokyo sale and potential new representation. She arrived in deep green silk, alone, composed, early. She did not know Ji-yeon would be there until she looked up from the menu and saw her across the room. Ji-yeon was composed in pale gray, pearls, The meticulous presentation of a woman who had decided this was her moment. She had positioned 3 women from Seoul's inner social circle within earshot with the precision of a choreographer. She made her way to Elizabeth's table between the starter and the main course, moving with the particular grace of someone who had rehearsed this approach. Elizabeth. Warm. Concerned. Devastating in the specific way a blade is devastating when wrapped in silk. I've been hoping to find a moment with you. As women, I think we owe each other honesty. She let that sit, the irony of the word honesty in her mouth, the audacity of it. Seo Jin's world is not what it appears from the outside, and with everything that's happening, the pregnancy, the proceedings, I just think it would be kinder for everyone if you considered whether this is truly the life you want. The table went very still. Elizabeth set her fork down. The same quiet precision she had used once before, on a Seoul rooftop with a champagne glass. She opened her clutch. She removed a single folded paper, the clinic receipt, the timestamp, the doctor's name, the specialty that had nothing to do with pregnancy, and everything to do with confirming there was none, and she placed it on the table. Flat. Smoothed with 2 fingers. She said nothing. She let Ji-yeon read it. Ji-yeon's composure did not shatter. It was too well constructed for that. But it bent. Visibly, measurably, the way expensive things bend before they decide what to do next. One of the watching women looked at her plate. Elizabeth picked her fork back up. You were saying something about kindness, she said pleasantly. Finish your thought. Ji-yeon looked at the paper. At Elizabeth. At the 3 women who were now deeply interested in their own conversations. Something moved across her face that was not anger and not shame, but the specific expression of a woman who has just understood that the opponent she underestimated was not an opponent at all, was simply a person who had been in possession of the truth the entire time and had been patient enough to wait for the right moment to set it on a table. She excused herself. She did not come back. The woman with silver-streaked hair across the table, a collector Elizabeth had met twice before, caught her eye and gave the smallest, most deliberate nod. The kind that means, I saw that. I will remember it. Well done. Elizabeth finished her dinner. She discussed the Tokyo sale with Bai Jung-soo. She left at a reasonable hour. On the street outside, she texted Adana. She folded. Adana sent back a crown. What happened next, nobody expected. Ji-yeon called Seo Jin at 11 that night. He was at the studio with Elizabeth. They were sitting on the floor with a new painting propped against the wall between them, a bottle of barley tea open, the comfortable silence of 2 people who had stopped needing to fill space. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. Elizabeth saw his expression shift. Not fear, something more complicated. Take it, she said. He stepped into the hallway. She heard his voice. Low, measured, not cold. Something else. She did not listen deliberately. She looked at the painting called Home and thought about what it meant that she had made something warm after a year of making things dark, and whether that was completion, or beginning, or both at once. He came back in 7 minutes. He sat beside her. He was quiet. What did she say? Elizabeth asked. She apologized. He looked at the painting. Not for the claim. She didn't address that directly. She apologized for the marriage. For going through the motions of it for 7 years. She said... He stopped. Started again. She said she hoped I found what she could see I was looking for. She said she could tell, when she saw photographs of the exhibition, that something had changed in me. That I looked like someone who had stopped being afraid. Elizabeth was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? Strange, he said. Like being forgiven for something you didn't know was also your fault. He looked at her. We were both doing the same thing, just differently, hiding in the same house. She reached over and took his hand. He held it. She's going to be okay, Elizabeth said. Not as a question. As a statement of faith in the particular resilience of women who have been through difficulty and chosen, at the last moment, the version of themselves they can live with. Yes, he said. I think she is. They sat with that for a while. The painting called home looked at them both. The Sunday call happened on a blue sky afternoon in early spring, when the warmth was finally honest rather than suggested. Elizabeth had prepared Halmayoni 3 days in advance, 2 conversations through Seo Jin's translation, and 1 memorable pantomimed exchange that ended with Halmayoni pointing at the pojangmatcha counter, then at Elizabeth's phone, then at herself, which Elizabeth correctly interpreted as, "Yes, this can happen here, but I am informed properly, not managed." Elizabeth informed her properly. Halmayoni considered it for 1 full day. Then she said 1 word to Seo Jin, which he translated as, "Fine, but I choose where I stand." Seo Jin arrived at 1:58, 2 minutes early, which for him was the equivalent of nervous pacing. He wore his good jacket over a simple dark shirt, and his hair was clean and his expression was the one Elizabeth had come to love most, completely undefended. She had not told him everything about what was coming, only that Nanangozi wanted to meet him, and that he should be himself, which was advice she knew would both comfort and terrify him. She opened the call at 2 o'clock exactly. Nanangozi came onto the screen in her Houston kitchen in a deep purple and gold Sunday wrapper, reading glasses on her head, a cup of tea cooling beside her, the full dignified attention of a woman who understood she was about to conduct something important. She had dressed for it. She had prepared. She looked at Elizabeth first. The long, complete reading, health, happiness, the quality of a woman standing on the other side of something difficult with her back straight and her eyes clear. She nodded once. Then she looked at Seo Jin. He straightened. Involuntary. The body responding to a gaze that expected something of it. Nanangozi studied him. She did not hurry. She did not make the social adjustments that let people hide. She looked at the full information of his face, the jaw, the eyes, the way he held his hands, the way he sat beside her, granddaughter with the specific posture of a man trying to be worthy of where he was sitting. The silence stretched long enough that Elizabeth, who was not easily unsettled, felt her own heartbeat. Then Seo Jin said, quietly, with more sincerity than rehearsal, and more care than certainty, "Good afternoon, Ma. I am honored to meet you." Nanangozi looked at him for another long moment. Then she spoke in Yoruba, slow and deliberate, looking directly at him as if the language between them was a formality rather than a wall. When she finished, Elizabeth's hand went to her mouth. "What did she say?" Seo Jin asked. His voice was not entirely steady. Elizabeth's eyes were bright. She was smiling with the specific brightness of someone receiving something they had not been certain was coming. "She said—" She stopped, tried again. "She said you have the eyes of a man who has survived himself. She said that is the rarest thing, and the only kind worth trusting with someone she loves." Seo Jin turned back to the screen. He bowed, full and genuine, Korean in its form and universal in its meaning, the bow of a man who understood he was in the presence of something real that he did not want to be careless with. Nanangozi received it. She nodded, deeper this time. The real one, the one that meant done, settled. Welcome. Then she leaned toward the screen and looked slightly to the right with the accuracy of a woman who knew exactly where another woman was standing, even when she couldn't see her. "The grandmother," she said, in careful English. "I know you are there. Come. Let me see you." Behind the counter, Halmayoni held very still for 4 seconds. The 4 seconds of a woman whose domain was being addressed and who was deciding between her instinct to maintain its boundaries and her genuine curiosity about the woman on the screen who had located her without being told where she was. Curiosity won. Halmayoni stepped in front of the camera. They looked at each other. Nanangozi from Houston in purple and gold. Halmayoni from Mapogu in a pojangmatcha apron. An ocean between them and every difference 2 people from 2 worlds carry: language, culture, food, history, the particular shape of the lives they had built from whatever materials their circumstances had provided. They looked at each other, with the immediate recognition of women who had both spent their lives being the person everyone leaned on and had learned to carry that weight with grace and without complaint and with the specific dry humor of people who have seen enough to know that most of what people worry about is not worth the worry. Nanan Ngozi raised her teacup. Halmayoni raised her ladle. Elizabeth made a sound she had no category for. Not quite laughter, not quite tears, something that lived between them in the specific register of being completely overwhelmed by something completely right. Seo Jin reached under the counter and took her hand. She felt his fingers close around hers. Warm, certain, the grip of a man who had decided he was not letting go. On screen, the two grandmothers had, through some combination of gesture and expression and the universal language of women who understood each other without needing the same words, begun a conversation that required no translation. Nanan Ngozi was pointing at the pojangmacha equipment with the sharp interest of a woman who took food seriously. Halmayoni was demonstrating something about the tteokbokki pot with an enthusiasm that Elizabeth had never seen from her directed at anyone who was not Seo Jin. "They are going to talk for an hour," Elizabeth said quietly. "At least," Seo Jin said. She looked at their joined hands on the counter, then at him. The sharp jaw, the dark eyes that had learned, across one deliberate year, to stay open when everything in his history said close. "Are you all right?" He looked at the screen. At Halmayoni laughing, the real laugh, the sharp, genuine one that he hadn't heard directed at a stranger in years. At Nanan Ngozi, leaning forward with the complete attention of a woman who was taking notes. At the two of them, finding each other across an ocean on a Sunday afternoon, with a teacup and a ladle, and no shared language and no apparent difficulty communicating at all. "I did not know," he said very quietly, "that it could feel like this." "Like what?" He was quiet for a moment, finding the exact word. "Safe," he said. "I did not know that this is what safe felt like." She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. The spring light came through the open front of the tent. The street was warm and slow. The city moved around them, indifferent and vast and entirely unaware that in a small pojangmacha in Mapo-gu, two grandmothers were conducting a diplomatic summit with a teacup and a ladle, while the people they loved sat side by side underneath, holding on. She did not tell him she was coming back. The Abuja exhibition had closed after 6 weeks, standing room most nights, a review that called the Displacement Series the most honest account of grief and reclamation in contemporary Nigerian diaspora art. Elizabeth had read it once, thanked the writer, and spent the rest of that evening eating jollof rice with Adana and Nanan Ngozi and talking about nothing important for 4 hours, which was its own kind of critical acclaim. She packed her suitcase on a Thursday. Red ribbon still on the handle. She booked the flight without telling Seo Jin the date. Not as a test, not as a game, but because she was returning to Seoul as the person she had become, and she needed that return to feel like hers, arriving by her own choice, walking back into her life because she wanted it, not because it was expecting her. She landed at Incheon at 7 in the evening, took a cab directly to Mapo-gu, did not call, did not text, told no one. She went to Halmayoni's stall, 11 at night, timed deliberately because some things deserve to be honored. The orange light was doing what it always did, warm and constant, spilling across the narrow street with the reliability of something that had never needed to announce itself. The smell of tteokbokki reached her from half a block away. She walked to the counter and sat down. Halmayoni was at her pots, back to the street, unhurried. Elizabeth said, in the Korean she had practiced for 6 weeks in Abuja hotels and airport lounges, and Nanan Ngozi's Houston kitchen at midnight via video call. "Halmayoni, waseo." "I'm here," the old woman stilled. Just 1 second, the stillness of someone hearing something they had been listening for. Then she turned around. She looked at Elizabeth. The complete, unedited assessment. The one that saw everything. Then she reached under the counter and brought out the white ceramic bowl. The second bowl, the one she had stopped setting out weeks into the absence, put away because absence needed honest acknowledgement, and not performance. She set it on the counter, ladled tteokbokki into it, set the chopsticks beside it, went back to her pots. Elizabeth sat in the orange light with the steam rising around her face. She called Seo-jin. First ring. "Where are you?" The question had something underneath it. Tight, restrained, a man trying to contain what he was feeling with limited success. "Mapogu," she said. She heard him go completely still. Then, "Which street?" "You know which street. Don't—" He stopped, started again. "Don't go anywhere." "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "I just got here." Halmeoni's shoulders shifted, the posture of someone trying not to smile. He came around the corner 11 minutes later. She counted because she was a woman who counted toward things she wanted now. The direction of her attention permanently changed. He was not running. He was moving at the pace of a man who had decided not to run and was losing the argument with himself. He wore dark trousers and his good jacket over a simple shirt, and his hair was slightly less composed than usual, and when he came around the corner and saw her on the stool in the orange light, he stopped at the edge of the tent and looked at her the way she had seen him look at Meridian, with the complete attention of a man who has arrived somewhere he thought might not exist. She looked at him over her bowl. "You're letting the cold in," she said. He stepped inside. He sat on his stool, the one that had always been his, the one the tent remembered. Halmeoni set a bowl in front of him without turning around. "You didn't tell me which day," he said. "I know." "Why?" She set her chopsticks down and turned to look at him fully, at the sharp jaw and the dark open eyes, and the face of a man who had spent 30 years building walls and 1 year carefully, deliberately, at great personal cost, taking them down. Because I needed to come back as myself, not as someone who was expected. Not arriving inside a plan someone else built. She looked at him. I needed to walk through the door of my own life. And his voice was quiet, entirely unguarded. She smiled. The full one, the real one, crinkled at the corners, nothing withheld. "It feels like mine," she said. "All of it. This stall, this city, this—" She stopped. She looked at him. "This." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached over and took a piece of tteokbokki from her bowl with his chopsticks, the same gesture she had made months ago in a ramen restaurant that had meant more than either of them had named at the time. She looked at him. He looked at her. The steam rose between them. Halmeoni, at her pots, said one word in Korean. Dry. Certain. Final. "What did she say?" Elizabeth asked. Seo-jin looked at the bowl she had kept, at the stool that had never been removed, at the woman beside him who had come back by her own choice at 11 at night to a pojangmatcha stall in Mapogu because some things deserved to be honored. "Finally," he said. She stole another piece of tteokbokki from his bowl. He let her. Outside, Seoul moved through its spring night. Warm now, actually warm, the cold finally giving up. And inside the orange tent, something that had been a long time becoming, arrived quietly and without announcement, as all real things do. If part 2 moved you, if you felt that final scene land, subscribe right now, because part 3 is already being written, and it opens in a way nobody will see coming. Like this video, so the algorithm puts it in front of the people who need this story. And in the comments, what moment in part 2 hit hardest? Ji-yeon's phone call to Seo-jin, the grandmothers and the teacup and the ladle, or Elizabeth saying this and stopping? Tell me. Every comment gets read, every single one.